Well, it's good to be with you again for another Bible study. My name is Kevin Young, and I have the privilege of being lead clergy here at Christ Table. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, visit the URL that is right up there at the corner of your screen, www.christstable.today. Would encourage you to sign up for the email list there so that you are aware of all of our studies, as well as all of the other things that we do here at Christ Table. Now, if you'd like more information about this study in particular, then right there's where you need to go. go.christstable.today/journey. There you can download an entire schedule of the readings for all 24 days of this study, as well as a PDF that will guide you each and every day through some reflections and prompts to help you get the most out of this study. Now, I will say that those resources are offered. They're absolutely free. No reason to feel guilty for downloading them and utilizing them. But if you would like to help support Christ Table and would like a printed version of those materials, as long as a spiritual resource box that goes along and supports that, you can get that right there. We offer this PDF absolutely free on there, but if you like a printed version, you can get it there at that go.christstable.today/journey. Also, as a part of that, you'll get this whole map that walks through each and every step of the way that Jesus goes through Mark. So that will help guide you along the journey through the book of Mark and help make sure that you keep up each and every step of the way as we go. Now, this is a bit of an unusual Bible study for most people. Maybe you've heard of Lectio Divina, but maybe you have not. It is a very old way of looking at scripture text. It actually, I think, personally, frankly, is a better way of looking at scripture and looking at text. That is Latin, Lectio Divina, for divine reading. And so it's actually, rather than you kind of reading the text, it encourage you during your study time to actually allow the text to read you. And so it'll ask you to prepare your heart, your mind, to settle yourself down, get in a quiet place where you can be kind of contemplative in that space. It'll ask you to read through the text one time and just kind of sit with it and then reflect. Sit with it a second time. Read through it if you have the opportunity and the time to do that. Imagine what it must have been like to hear those words, to be a part of the audience, allowing yourself to sit and reflect. And then respond. Take some time and journal. Spend some moments reflecting on maybe what there is in that text for you to think about. What caught your eye? What gave you pause? What spoke directly to you? And that may be something very different than speaks to every other person who reads the text on that day or today. And then to spend some time resting and praying and just allowing the words and the feelings to wash over you. Now, you can Google Lectio Divina and get all of this and some ways in which to help you kind of navigate that. Or, like I said, you can download that PDF or get the printed version, which also includes all of those prompts and helps in there as well. It's a different way of engaging scripture and engaging the Bible. And it is for those of us maybe who have difficult relationships with the Bible, with church, with Bible studies, who always kind of come at things from a logical, analytical, kind of parsing and dissecting the text and what it means in Bible studies. This is a really kind of cool way of looking at the text. And so would encourage you to maybe do this because, you know, as we learned in biology class, whenever you dissect something, you have to kill it to dissect it. And so this tries to breathe new life back into the text. And for that reason, during this journey Bible study in particular, I'm going to kind of handle each of these study days a little bit differently. I'm not going to dissect and parse all of the information, all of the things that are in the study, because I want you to spend some time and some energy kind of diving into it yourself rather than just listening to me. But I want to give you maybe just a few things to think about or to look at in the text. And so why don't we just kind of jump in, and I'll tell you some of the things that whenever I did this process of sitting with the text and thinking about it and ruminating on it for a little bit of time, what stood out to me. So we'll begin in verse 1 of chapter 1 of the book of Mark. This is the good news about Jesus the Messiah, the Son of God. It began just as the prophet Isaiah had written. And so we begin by going way back. Here's what the prophet Isaiah said that the author of Mark wants us to pay attention to. Look, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you. Now, this is speaking of John the Baptist, or John the Baptizer, the cousin of Jesus. And he will prepare your way. He is a voice shouting in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord's coming. And that word, as I was reading through this the first time, kind of letting it wash over me, thinking about it, I began to kind of contemplate this idea of the word prepare, of doing preparation. For those of you who understand the season of Lent, this is, if you're doing this real time as a Bible study, the season of Lent is a season of preparation, of getting your heart, your mind, your soul wrapped around the idea of resurrection, Good Friday, the week of Passion, and trying to find ways to recenter yourself. That's preparing. And I loved the way that this verse ends here at the beginning of Mark chapter 1. Clear the road for him. I spoke about this a little bit last Sunday. I wondered what it might mean to clear the road. Oftentimes we will use that statement for an accident, some sort of a traumatic event on a highway. Sometimes, though, it doesn't have to be something that has caused pain or suffering. We use that line, clear the road, up in the north. We're in Birmingham, Alabama here now, but I grew up in Indiana and spent some time in Cleveland, Ohio, where there was a lot of snow on the ground, sometimes this time of year. And we would say the roads aren't yet cleared, or the plow has to come to clear the road before we can go anywhere. That wasn't something that was cause of pain or suffering, but was just something that was in the way. Wasn't our fault. Wasn't a problem. That was ours to begin with, but it kind of stood in the way of us getting to where we needed to go. And I think that whenever I came at this passage, that was one of the things that stood out to me in particular, was this idea of what might need to be cleared out of the road of my heart or soul in order to truly find rest, to be able to contemplate Jesus, to be able to experience this season that we're spending on a journey through the book of Mark. Now, there were a couple of others. I want to jump just a few verses later to verse 12, where we're now here in this segment of Mark chapter 1, the reading for today, where we're talking about John the Baptizer being the one who is a forerunner, who's coming and kind of clearing this road, preparing the way for Jesus. And it says that the Spirit compelled Jesus then after that to go into the wilderness. And that word compelled, that Jesus was compelled by God, compelled by the Spirit to go to a place that he probably didn't necessarily want to go. I don't know if you've ever been in a wilderness out in the West. It's not a great place to be. If you've ever been in a spiritual wilderness, it can be a very, very dry place to be. Not a lot of people desire to go and be in the wilderness unless they want to go and be alone and away from people. The Spirit compelled Jesus to go. And I wondered, as I read that, I wondered in what ways perhaps has God been compelling me, maybe to go someplace, to do something, to stop something in particular that perhaps is needful of being cleared. And I wondered, as I reflected on that, what maybe I had missed. Perhaps have there been moments where the Spirit has been trying to compel me to do something, and because the road of my heart or soul isn't clear, I wasn't able to hear that compelling or feel that compelling. Or maybe the opposite of that is true. Maybe many of the things, or some of the things that I've been setting my mind or my time, my money towards things that I've been being intentional about. Maybe I thought that the reason that I was doing them was for one thing, but maybe God is going to use it for something else. Maybe it was actually God who is compelling that desire to build a relationship with that person, to take up that hobby or activity, to begin to utilize my money in this way rather than in that way. You see, I wonder if Jesus, whenever he was going into the wilderness, I wonder if he knew what was about to meet him there in the wilderness. And I don't want to reveal it because I want you to read it, but Jesus is going to experience something here in the wilderness. And it seems as though God was compelling him towards this thing. But I wonder if he had known what was about to happen to him there in the wilderness. I wonder if he would have allowed the Spirit to compel him there. Maybe the things that you are being compelled to do are needful or important, that I'm being compelled to do, but if I were to know the full story, I might resist. I wonder what I might be resistant of. Maybe that's the question for me. Are there things that God might compel me to do that I might be resistant of? People that I might be compelled to interact with that don't look the same way that I do, that don't vote the same way that I do, that don't believe the same way that I do, and yet God's compelling me for some reason to do that. And then the third and final, actually, this is right at the end. Jesus is now in the midst of calling his first disciples. He gives a few names of people who he's called. In verse 20, he calls them at once, and then they follow him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men. I think that this is a great question at the beginning of this verse. What is Jesus calling you to do? Are there things that you've been called to do? Or maybe you're being called to leave something behind. Maybe it's not to take something up, but it's to leave something behind. This is very traditional in Lent, to take something on, to give something up, to take something on, and to sacrifice something else in order to take on that thing. A few of Jesus' disciples had to leave things behind. Here, those he called follow him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men. As I was kind of contemplating this passage, I wondered what must it have been like for Zebedee and the hired men to see the sons follow Jesus. I wonder if Zebedee was a fan, was supportive of it, or if he wasn't. I wonder if Zebedee even had the opportunity to go. Would he have gone? As I was thinking about this, I wondered, Zebedee and the hired men, why didn't they go? Why didn't they follow Jesus too? Was it because they weren't invited? Or was it because they didn't ask? Maybe they never said, hey, can we come too? I wondered what they might have missed simply because they didn't go, or they didn't check to see whether or not they were allowed or invited to go. And it made me sit and wonder and contemplate, what might I miss in Jesus, in life, in the story, because I'm not willing to involve myself in the journey. And that is my prayer for you, for all of us on this journey through the book of Mark today, chapter 1, verses 1 through 20, is that we will involve ourselves in the journey, that we will involve and invest ourselves in the story. And I know, unless you've done this kind of Bible study before, this is different. Instead of you studying the Bible, it's a little like the Bible is studying you, sitting with it. And I know that it might feel a little uncomfortable. It might feel a little awkward. Try it. And again, remember that website, you can go right there, go.christstable.today/journey. And there's a PDF that will help you walk through each of those 5 steps. Very simple, very easy, can be done in the space of just a few minutes. Or if you really want to devote some time to allowing it to wash over you and spend some time contemplating it, you can devote a half an hour or even more to it. Either way, it's good to have you along on this journey as we make our way through the Gospel of Mark. And until tomorrow, when we continue on in day 2, happy reading.